Okay, we are live with my very special friend Yiana Pandelis.
Thank you for having me, Zachary.
Welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. So let's just get right into it, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for our listeners, our millions and billions of fans back home, this
Hope so.
is this is my very special friend and amazing actress Yana, and I'm gonna let Yana have the mic for a second and tell us where you're from, Yana.
So I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and I moved to America 2 years ago. And the first thing I did was hustle as much as I could to get a manager and an agent here. And it was really challenging because the strike happened as soon as we got here. So
Right.
I actually was lucky enough to book like a few jobs, and it was really exciting because I thought, it was going to be like that all the time. And but then I had the pleasure of going to Stella Adler during the strike, which was really good to get back into because as an actor you never stop training, and I had the pleasure to work with all the amazing teachers at Stella. So
Yeah, I also came. So you came in 2023, or
yes, I believe so. Yeah.
yeah, I same. I moved in 2023, and a bunch of my friends in New York gave me a bunch of crap because when I came here it was January of 2023, and it was really cold and rainy. That was like the
Yes.
rainiest winter ever in
Yeah.
LA, and I was like, "Wait, what? I thought it never rained here." And then the strike happened,
Hmm.
and so a lot of my friends back home were like, "Wow, like you really moved to LA for the coldest, rainiest season ever, and then the
Yeah.
actors went on strike.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what a great time to."
Yeah.
But for our listeners, Yana is a student at Stella Adler in Hollywood, and I agree. I think that actually the strike was the best time you could take classes. I think because
Yeah.
nothing was
Exactly.
happening anyway. Like
Yeah.
you may as well train. Um, so tell the listeners about your experience acting in Australia, and then we will move to your experiences in Hollywood.
So I started training at home at the age of 12, and I was, well, my agent was my neighbor. So it
Wow.
was very easy for me to, start at home. And I was very used to going to the one place. And I think over time, I was just really hoping to branch out and try other things. So I kind of grew up in an acting school, and it was really my whole life, really, because I was at least going there once a week from
Mm.
such a young age. And that school was the school that introduced me to Stella Adler. So I went there on a workshop there when I was 16, and Stella has sort of been a huge introduction to LA for me. And
Mm.
as soon as I was there, I was really excited to, like, I knew I was going to come here when I was a little bit older. So it's kind of surreal reflecting back on it and thinking that I actually did that and knowing that at a really young age as well.
Yeah, that's great. So, were you involved as a kid in like plays and productions like that, or and like in school and yeah?
Yeah, with that acting school, I did a lot of plays throughout
Okay.
the year. I did a lot of camera work, scenes, and short films here and there with the school as well. And throughout that period, I got the chance to write my own short films, and that's where I also learned to edit with my teachers. So I fell in love with theatre and camera at the same place.
Mm.
Yeah.
What do you think? Were there any big differences in what you were doing in Australia versus what you're doing out here, like in terms of training, or was it similar? Was it different? Was
Well, at I really felt like I got an introduction to so many different acting techniques.
Mm,
So learning all the, Meisner, Laban, the method, and imagination as well. And coming here, it was purely just imagination,
mm.
which I kind of loved, but I felt like I used different techniques for depending on the role I play.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you always know when you were growing up you wanted to be an actor? Like you knew first thing you can remember? Was it later in life? Like was it?
Um, it's funny because when I look back, I think I wanted to do so many different things, but I don't think I actually wanted to do them. Like, for instance, my brother tells me that I used to want to bake cakes and stuff when I was really, really young. But now thinking back on it, that was actually me watching an actress like playing a baker. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it was just me wanting to play all these different characters in
That's
different roles.
so
Yeah.
relatable. I
Yeah.
can remember the same thing. Like whatever I had to, if I watched something, I would want to be that thing, and I had that same realization. It's like,
Yeah.
oh no, I want to play that thing.
Yeah.
Like I want to play that character or something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. Like when I was in kindergarten, I wanted to be a mailman
That's
because I think I had watched something with a. That's great. Um, and so tell us about Yana was the lead in a feature in Australia.
hmm
Tell us about that.
Yeah, that film was Unsound. I did that when I think I booked it in 2019. It was quite a journey because the amount of auditions I did for that film was an amazing experience because it felt like each callback was just closer and closer, and you just never knew like where it was going because of how crazy the role was and what it entailed. So it was a deaf trans man character, and I had to learn sign language for it.
Mm,
And I didn't know sign language at the time, so I had to do a lot of practicing beforehand for the audition as well. So
mm,
I think the biggest takeaway I got from that was expressing myself with my body language rather than with my voice, which
mm,
is what I was so used to doing. And growing up, I think that's why my mum allowed me to use my voice because it was my form of expression. And I think she saw that and she allowed that. I guess she just wanted, she liked that I was trying to fit in with everyone else with communicating verbally.
mm-hmm.
So I don't think she was going to, stop me from doing that. So I've had the pleasure of growing up, communicating with my voice. But I do find sign language really interesting. That yeah, it is it. I think once you do it, you kind of start to understand. Wow, it really does feel different
Mm.
with that way of communicating.
For sure, I bet.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, you are deaf, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And so have you always worn hearing aids from birth?
So my mum worked out I was hard of hearing when I was 2, and I was on the couch, and she kept calling my name, and I didn't respond. So she took me to an audiologist, and then found out that I was hard of hearing. So I've been wearing hearing aids since the age of 2.
Wow, how has that been like an obstacle, or has it been in the acting endeavor? Has it been something you've had to um like an obstacle you've had to hurdle, or not so much?
Um, I think it has been an obstacle, but I think more so not. I mean, there's always going to be challenges here and there, but I I grew up to kind of love that part of me because it kind of makes me who I am. Like I love the benefits that come with it.
Mm,
I'm more overly observant. I feel like I understand body language a bit more, and I think that's where my curiosity for acting did come in because
mm,
it is what what is being a human being like, and playing other characters, and I love incorporating that knowledge I have into my characters as well.
mm. That's so interesting. when you were talking about, so for unsound acting through sign language, that's so physical.
Yeah,
How like that's such a pretty unique experience from the acting side of it, expressing yourself physically.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, in a way, it really did feel like there was a certain cadence I had to try and incorporate into it with especially with acting with other actors who were signing with me.
Mm.
It was a different experience in terms of like you're listening, but you're listening with body language.
Yeah,
And
wow.
yeah, that was an amazing experience to do that with other actors.
So how was the process different? Like, so if you're like learning lines when you have a script and you're reading it and you're like memorizing lines and you're like trying to live in this space and like
Yeah.
live in the with signing, that's so. Did it take you longer? Did it take you? What was that experience when you were doing lines like?
That's an interesting question. I feel like no one's asked me that. I feel like it went into my body easier because I
Wow.
am physicalizing it and I'm doing it again and again and again. And yeah, it feels like the inner life does arise faster.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I know like whenever I have a more like a meteor monologue or a bunch of lines that like um I sometimes incorporate physicality, like if I'm doing something in the mirror, or actually a lot of times I walk, like I'll walk on a treadmill when
Yeah.
I read lines to try to be like moving. But sometimes I've noticed if I do like a motion when
Yeah.
I'm doing one particular line, I remember that line always.
Yeah.
When I have like a thing that I do with it,
Yeah.
and other lines that I don't do anything, they'll just be gone. I won't.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But sometimes that's so interesting because I've noticed if I have some sort of element of physicality incorporated with a line, I
Yeah.
usually can remember that line a lot better.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because it's also interesting to learn if you're someone who learns better by reading it and then you memorize it better by remembering seeing the word or if you remember better by hearing it.
Mm,
And yeah, there's so many different types of actors out there. So
yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy. Well, that's amazing. So fast forward, we move to Hollywood.
Yes.
2023, we moved to Hollywood,
Yeah.
and we're here. What how would you describe living in America, the differences between living in Australia? I talked to Alice about this, and she
Yeah.
said she gave a funny answer. She said there was some similar like there were differences, but at the end of the day, it wasn't actually that different.
Right.
But you're from Melbourne, which
Yeah.
is a bigger city. Sorry, I'm kind of ignorant. How many? It's big, right?
I wouldn't say it's too big. I'm
It's not
not
like
sure.
LA.
I'm not sure about the population
Yeah,
size, but I know it's definitely a lot smaller than
yeah,
LA.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, how are you liking Hollywood?
It's different. It's it's very different to home, I think. I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is not really industry related. It's more, I feel like I've changed myself a little bit. Like I'm less friendlier, I think, because I'm living right in Hollywood, and usually at home, like when I'm walking past somebody, I find that make eye contact and I smile,
Yeah,
good morning or good afternoon.
yeah.
Whereas here,
You just
I've
gotta
been
keep it
so,
moving.
yeah, I just avoid it and just keep walking,
Right.
which is really, really sad. But that is the first, it shouldn't be the first thing that comes to mind. But I have enjoyed learning about, American culture and how
Mm,
different it is. And I do feel like there is a lot more opportunity here, but with my visa particularly, it has been harder for me to get my foot in the door because I can't get those, one or two lines.
mm,
That it is me getting like a guest role in something,
mm-hmm,
and that feels like a bigger competition.
mm,
At home, I felt like I was in a really good place with where I was in the industry. It just seems like I have to do a lot more to kind of get there, because it's me forming those new, like, because I wasn't born here, so I
Yeah.
have to create those relationships again. and and at home, it's kind of, when you're doing that really young already, it just feels like you're doing that all over again here. But I'm enjoying that regardless, because it's still an experience, and it's still me being around really amazing actors who are wanting
Mm.
to do the same thing. I think that's the big plus side by being here. I am surrounded by so many people in the arts.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not every day you meet like five musicians, or,
Right.
and then on the other side, there's like more actors, and just even the stories that you hear, like, everyone just seems like they want to collaborate and create something.
Yeah.
Whereas at home, it wasn't a very big creative space. It was, you kind of really had to seek for it.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it really is everywhere.
Yeah. That's great. And so you're at Stella now currently? Are you
No, I
okay?
just finished. Yeah.
Okay. What class did so tell us about the class that you just finished.
So I did
Because
tech.
for the listeners back home, I know a
Yes.
little bit about it.
Exactly. So I did do tech 1, 2, 3, script breakdown, scene study, beginner,
Claps for all these classes.
intermediate, character, and advanced.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so when I'm just curious, like I love picking actors' brains about their process and what works for them and what doesn't work for them, and also for the listeners, I think everyone's going to think this is an exclusively Australian actor podcast because the episode before this, Australian actor. This episode, Australian actor. The episode after this, Australian actor. It's gonna be.
They're taking over the world.
This is just gonna be an exclusively Aussie podcast. What are some things that you find really work for you when you are getting into a character, whether it's for class, whether it's for a professional job, whether it's just for an exercise? If you're getting a character, what is something that you do that really helps you identify with that character, and what are some things that work for you when you do that?
I think the number one thing is creating those memories.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time creating memories. Like, I'm saying like 2 hours, I could be like sitting in a dark room just creating something that's so far from me, and it takes so much time to create so much life around you that's not yours. So, like, whether that is, what does your brother look like, what does your mum look like, and most recent one I can think of, so doing Bug and playing Agnes, like,
Which is great. Cheers for Bug.
that character has a son, and that is so far from who I am, and I'm not a mother, but I needed to create those memories of what it's like to have a son, and what is it like to love someone who is your child, and then losing that child. And there's just a lot of depth that I feel like I need to create, and the imagination really works for me with finding that inner life of a character. And I think accent work really helps with me, like, because it feels outside of me as well. Anything that feels more outside of me feels like I'm actually getting closer to the character. And that's why I do introduce so much different art, because I seem to like everything. Do you know what I mean? I'm not even picky with what music I like, or what paintings I like. I seem to fall in love with everything, because my characters, or the characters I play, like different things. So I think that's the most fun that I get from being an actor, just learning, researching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, accent work is it's always like I haven't done too many roles that require accents. I've done Southern, which I can
Yeah.
do pretty easily, but it's funny whenever you act when you're doing an accent. It's like acting on top of acting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like another like element to it. That's funny. So have you had experiences on set or at school or in class, anything like that, where you've noticed something that really doesn't click with you in terms of and it's fine if not, but I'm just
Right.
always curious to hear, some people really have stories where it's like, oh yeah, this technique really worked for me, or like, oh, this really doesn't work for me.
Right,
I'm
right.
curious if you have any examples of that, and if not, it's fine.
I'm trying to think. I think over time I've gotten good at knowing what each of my characters need.
Yeah.
Um, what sometimes doesn't work for me is the writing down in the journal entries. I don't know why, but I feel like
Yeah.
something from my subconscious of Yana enters.
Mm.
But but that's only with some of the characters when I feel like maybe they're different intellectually, and I feel like I wouldn't, like maybe someone like Blanche. I don't know
Mm.
if I could actually enter her conscience and write like her. I feel like.
You are a great Blanche. You know that.
Thank you so
Cheers
much.
for Blanche.
I feel like every actress should play Blanche, isn't it?
Well, at Stella, we've seen it about 1,000 different
Exactly.
times.
We have.
But you were great. You really were.
Thank you so much.
Um, so this past year, you directed a short Wild Rumpus,
Mm-hmm.
which is looks awesome. I was very happy to work with you on that.
Thank you.
Was that your directorial?
Debut, yeah.
Yeah. One thing about starting a podcast is
Right.
people are gonna realize how dumb I am.
No, that is not
I think it's
true. Oh my God,
directorial
stop. No,
debut. Um,
that's not true.
Tell us. So that was your debut as a director,
I
no?
did.
Yes.
I've done a few short films in Australia, but
Okay.
it was my debut in America.
Your
That's for
American
sure.
debut.
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
good. Very good. So this was what? So this was like your third that you've directed?
Yes, I believe so. It was my
Cool.
third.
Cool.
Yes.
If you can tell us a little bit about your how you get into something when you're directing and how it's different from when you're just acting in something.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging doing all three, being the writer, being the director, and starring in it.
Yeah, I can't imagine, dude.
And raising the money to make it. It's it's something I feel like I slowly want to build over time. Like I know that when I get older, I'd want to do more directing.
Mm.
I think it's just maybe it's an imposter syndrome thing. I
Mm.
don't know. I sometimes feel like I'm not even old enough to direct. Like I don't know. Maybe this bizarre thought that I have where directors need to be older because I don't know, they have more life experience maybe. But I do what I can to try and create authentic characters on screen, and there's nothing more than I love to watch relationships on screen and the complexities of that, and getting an insight to chaotic lifestyles and the drama of it. And yeah, that's the stories I like to tell. So it was just sort of an experiment, really, to just see if it's something I can do, and I enjoy doing it, and I love collaborating with other actors who have that vision as well. So yeah.
How has your experience been? So I didn't know that you had directed a few things in Australia. Has has it gotten easier each time you've done something? Because I know sometimes it's not linear. I know sometimes like your first one, sometimes you can knock out of the park, and then you
Yeah.
have. But other times, I know it gradually does get better. The more you know.
Yeah.
What has your experience been like with that?
Yeah,
With
I
with
think it
filmmaking?
does. I think it does get better each time you do it. You definitely learn. You definitely see who you can work with and who you know. You're always going to have those people on set that you have difficulty with, but that's a part of the job anyway. You know,
Yeah.
you're gonna have
Working with creatives can sometimes
exactly.
be really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. But I would hope to think that it only gets better.
Yeah.
Because a lot of directors make things that the first few are not what they sort of thought it was going to be. But yeah, with this film, it's the closest to what I wrote on the page. It's the closest to what I thought it was going
That's
to be.
great.
So that's a good sign. It's yeah. What's difficult is that you only have so much money, so much time, and yeah, you do the best with what you get.
Yeah, no, I know. I have never felt that personally, but I can understand how the when you run into um, logistics butting heads with artistic direction can
Yeah,
be
yeah,
quite a challenge in terms of like deadlines, or you only have X amount of money, or you only have
yeah,
X amount of days.
yeah,
Yeah, I can.
exactly.
Right,
And you can only do so many shots. You sometimes just have to move on and work with what you've got. So
right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, no, I can't wait to see Wild Rumpus. Well, if you can tell the listeners, where will that be available when it's?
It's still in post production. I'm hoping it will be finished at the end of the month.
Wow!
Yeah.
Cheers to that. Nice.
It's just at the moment I've just got to color grade it and do some sound mixing, and then it's good to go.
How do you like that side of it? When shooting is wrapped, I know that's actually sort of where the real work begins, really. Like for a project, right? Like when
Yeah,
I've worked with directors and where I feel I don't really even know the word for it, but it's like as an actor, you put in the work for with everything that comes with it, and then when you're done shooting, it's like, all right, I'm done. Now you and everybody else, it's like that's actually where the
yeah,
real work starts is
yeah,
when the actors are out of there.
yeah, yeah. And if you want to do a film festival circuit and
Yeah.
with the short film, and yeah, there's actually a great book that I've been meaning to read about like what you do with a short film when you finish it,
Mm.
because that's actually something that I in the past I've sort of done a short film and then just moved on and done the next. But it's really finding out what do you do with the short.
Mm.
Do you branch out and show as many people, or do you try and make a better one?
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn in that department.
I didn't really realize until I got more involved, like acting professionally, how really important shorts are and what can come from them.
Yeah,
Like I didn't I've been learning as I go, figuring things out about the industry and learning each day, and something I didn't know the day before, and all that. And like I had no idea really, like for example, the movie Whiplash with
mm-hmm.
Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons started as a short,
Yeah,
and J.K. Simmons was in the short,
yeah,
and it was received very well in these festivals, and that happens a lot.
yeah,
Like that happened. I didn't even know that really. Like
yeah,
when I grew up, um, you know, I didn't really I would make like very amateur projects with my friends,
mm-hmm.
very cringe, like, and just as like a expressive outlet, and I didn't um realize actually that you can that's actually a pretty, like, making a short is a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
and is really important.
Yeah,
Like shorts are really important,
yeah,
in the industry. That's so cool. So you've been in LA this for 2 years,
mm-hmm.
yes, and um, what do you see, like going forward? Do you want to gear towards making another short? You think? Do you want to gear towards just focusing on acting? Do you want to gear on focusing on what do you see yourself focusing on?
I definitely have another short in mind
Nice.
that I've been meaning to make for a while. This is actually something I wrote before Wild Rumpus. Um, for some reason, I imagine doing it here. It's oh, I won't spoil it too much, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, definitely want to make another short. Also, want to focus more on trying to get a commercial agent at the
Yeah.
moment. I've had a manager and agent for a while, and yeah, thinking about where I want to stay as well. Do I want to stay in LA? Do I want to go to
Mm.
New York? Do I want to? There's so many,
Mm-hmm.
directions that I can go, and yeah, it's definitely something I'm keeping in the back of my mind at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's great. And
Big life choices.
well, today we're sitting here in LA, and it kind of feels like a New York day. It's cold
It
and
does.
rainy.
It does. I'm not.
We're sitting here having tea, looking at the rain.
I know.
No, New
Not
York is New
complaining.
York is awesome.
Yeah.
I there are many places artists can go now.
Yeah.
You know, it used to. I feel like it used to just be New York or
Yeah.
LA, and now it's really like New Orleans and Atlanta and
Yeah.
Charlotte, North Carolina,
Yeah.
and
I
Vegas,
agree.
and I mean at Vancouver, Canada, and like
Mhm.
it really isn't. You can go all over the place, which I think is really cool. Um, when you do you ever have plans on going back to Australia? That was a question I meant to ask you when we were talking about it.
It would depend on a lot of things, um, finance,
Yeah.
opportunity, um, family events. Maybe that would be more of a short-term thing, but I I do hope to create a life here. I think,
Yeah.
whether that is LA or New York or I don't know. Sometimes I keep thinking about Broadway in particularly.
Heck
I
yeah.
don't know. It just comes and goes. Maybe that I want to go down that road. Um, but yeah, I have this funny saying with my partner that acting is the only reason we get up in the morning. So wherever that is, it doesn't matter as long as we're doing what we love.
No, I hear you. Is it's interesting. Like, so in back home for you, i- is the industry different? So like you were just saying in New York, there's Broadway, and there's such a big TV
Yeah,
renaissance going on in New
yeah,
York right now, and LA obviously is like the where we want to be. There's so many studios out here and all that stuff. Is it like that in Melbourne? Like, is there like such a vibrant theater scene and movie industry scene?
there is a little bit. I think it's getting better over
Yeah.
time. I heard recently that our main soap show was getting axed, which is Neighbours. I'm not
Hmm.
sure if that's particularly true, but I there is a few things happening in Melbourne. You have Heartbreak High that was on Netflix, NCIS Sydney.
Oh wow.
There's a few things happening. It's just very minimal. It's not as much. Um, but yeah, there's definitely opportunity there. It's just different in America. There's
Yeah.
just so much, and I think as an actor, you just get curious and just want to experience it. And, yeah.
So for the listeners, is there anything? Do you have anything that you want to plug where people can find you? Social media, YouTube, or anything where you want to advertise at all?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I don't really use social media. I'm kind of one of those
Yeah.
people. I'm just like in the corner with my art. I'm trying to avoid my phone. But yeah, I'm
That's good.
definitely on Instagram
Okay.
and just trying to, write and keep acting and doing what I love. And,
Well,
yeah.
I hope you do because you're wonderful, and I love
Thank
that
you.
we've become such besties
Oh,
because
thank
I love
you.
having you around, and I think you're doing what you're meant to be doing.
Oh, thank you so much.
And thanks for coming on the pod. I think this is great.
Thanks for having me, Zachary.
All right, thank you.